Well, let's get more on this now with Ivan Eland, who's a senior fellow and director of the Centre on Peace and Liberty at the Independent Institute. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Really good to have you back with us, Ivan. As this summit is imminent, what are your expectations on what will emerge from this meeting? Because we are getting mixed messages from Donald Trump himself. Initially, he was confident that he could reach a deal. Now he's saying that this could be the first of two or more meetings.
Yes, well, he's always very impetuous, and he always overstates everything, how he's going to do it. Remember, he was going to solve the war on the first day he was in office, and here we are months later. So yeah, I think you have to take what he says with a grain of salt until we actually see if there's a news conference or what's decided here. And I think one big, you just mentioned one big snag. The U.S. has guaranteed security guarantees. What are those? I don't think that Putin is going to accept Ukraine going into NATO, because that's one of the reasons that he invaded in the first place, so that Ukraine wouldn't go into NATO. So these security guarantees are very, that's an area where that's going to be a big problem for Trump and the West as far as getting Putin to stop the war. And I think Putin really wants this extra land, certainly in the provinces that he's declared he's annexed, but he doesn't have the entire territory, and also maybe more than that. Who knows? So I think this is giving Putin a big diplomatic win, and probably not getting too much for it. I think this war is probably going to go on.
Well, that's right, because a lot of analysts are saying that the very fact that Putin has been invited to the United States is seen as a win for Putin, and that's before any discussion gets underway. Just looking at the Russian perspective, do you think they have much to gain from meeting with Donald Trump, given the fact that, as Moscow claims, they have the upper hand militarily when it comes to this war?
Well, I think they have a big advantage that we just mentioned diplomatically. It's a feather in Putin's cap. The real question is, do they have any incentive to make concessions to Donald Trump? Meeting with him is a good thing for them, especially on U.S. soil. But I just don't see that they do. I mean, the war is pretty stalemated, but as your correspondent just said, Russians still have tremendous advantages in numbers of men and equipment. And if Trump is going to be a fair weather supplier to Ukraine, which he's indicated that he's going to be, or send it through the Europeans, then the Russians have no incentive to solve the war. And if they're willing to pay the high costs that they're paying, and Putin has seemed to be willing to pay the high costs and losing casualties and equipment, but Russia has so much compared to Ukraine that they still have an advantage after all these years of war. And so I don't really see where this is going to end. And I think Trump also, one possibility is, if Putin doesn't agree to do what he wants, he's just going to say, well, nobody wants to solve this. I'm out. Call me when it's over. And unfortunately, he may have, muddled up the whole mess by doing this summit.
Up to this meeting, Donald Trump has threatened to impose secondary sanctions on Moscow if Putin doesn't agree to end the war. How real are those threats, do you think?
Well, that's a very good question, because we saw the deadline on today was that if he didn't do anything, these sanctions were going to go in. And not only did Trump not do that, well, he did it in the case of India, but not nowhere else. He invited, Putin to this meeting. So he's not only sort of abandoning his ultimatum, but he's rewarding Putin for thumbing his nose at it. And the India sanctions, these are secondary sanctions against India for buying Russian oil. But he hasn't sanctioned any of the other countries, Brazil, Turkey, Germany, China, particularly China is the biggest buyer. And so this ultimatum has been he's just retreated and even worse. And so I think you're correct in asking what are the consequences of this, and if there will ever come of anything, because he always retreats on the tariffs, and he hasn't really put tariffs on Russia like he has other countries, in the economic sphere. So the real question is he going to follow through on this? And he may, as I say, he may just wash his hands of the whole thing.
Okay, Ivan Eland, we thank you again for joining us on the program.